Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, entitled Mother Yashoda Binds Lord Krishna, texts 13 and 14. Na cha antar na bahi yasya na purvam na api cha aparam purva aparam bahi cha anta jagata ya jagatchaya tam matva atmajam avyaktam martyalingam adokshajam gopika ulukhale damna babandha prakritam yata nachantarnaba hiryasya nachantarnaba hiryasya nachantarnaba hiryasya na purvam na picha param na purvam na picha param purva param bahischantar purva param bahischantar jagato yo jagatchayah jagato yo yagatchayah tam matvatmajam avyaktam tam mahatvatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adokshajam martyalingam adokshajam gopikolu kale damna gopikolu kale damna babhanda prakritam yata babhanda prakritam yata nachantarna bahiryasya na purvam na picha param purva param bahischantar jagato yo jagatchayah tamatva tamatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adokshajam gopikolu kale damna babhanda prakritam yata nachantarna bahiryasya na purvam na picha param purva param bahischantar Jagatoyo jagatchayaha tammatvatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adokshajam gopikolu kaledamna babanda prakritam yata. Oh. Matyalinga madokshajam gopikolu kaledamna babanda prakritam yata. Purvaparam bahishchanta Jagatoyo jagatjaya Matvajam avyaktam yasya na purvam prachaparam Purvaparam bahishchantar Jagatoyo jagatjaya Tamatvacham avyaktam Martyalingam adokshajam Gopikolu kaledana Babanda prakritam yata. Matajis Nachantar na bahiryasya Na purvam na prachaparam Purvaparam bahishchanta Gatoyo jagatjaya Tammatvatmajam avyaktam Amayingam adokshajam Pikolu kaledamnam Banda prakritam yatam. Na, not. Cha, also. Anta, interior. Na, nor. Bahi, exterior. Yasya, whose. Na, neither. Purvam, beginning. Na, nor. Api, indeed. Cha, also. Aparam, end. Purva aparam, the beginning and the end. Bahishcha anta, the external and the internal. Jagata, of the whole cosmic manifestation. Yaha, one who is. Jagat Chaya, and who is everything in creation in total. Tam, him, Matva, considering. Atmajam, her own son. Avyaktam, the unmanifested. Martyalingam, appearing as a human being. Adokshajam, beyond sense perception. Gopika, Mother Yashoda. Ulukale, to the grinding mortar. Damna, by a rope. Babanda, bound. Prakritam, yatha, as done to a common human child. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, He is all-pervading, because He is not under the influence of the element of time. For Him, there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in His own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute, beyond relativity, He is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although He is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person, who is beyond the perception of the senses, had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:12, Krishna is described as the Supreme Brahman, Param Brahma, Param Dhama. The word Brahma means the greatest. Krishna is greater than the greatest, being unlimited and all-pervading. How can it be possible for the all-pervading to be measured or bound? Then again, Krishna is the time factor. Therefore, He is all-pervading, not only in space, but also in time. We have measurements of time, but although we are limited by past, present, and future, for Krishna these do not exist. Every individual person can be measured, but Krishna has already shown that although He is also an individual, the entire cosmic manifestation is within His mouth. All these points considered, Krishna cannot be measured. How then did Yashoda want to measure Him and bind Him? We must conclude that this took place simply on the platform of pure transcendental love. This was the only cause. Advaitam achyuttam anadimanantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhaktau govindam adipurusham tammaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 5:33. Everything is one because Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. Krishna cannot be measured or calculated by Vedic knowledge, Vedeshu Durlabam. He is available only to devotees, Adurlabam Atma Bhakto. Devotees can handle Him because they can act on the basis of loving service. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvataha. Thus Mother Yashoda wanted to bind Him. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadah Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantarada Kantanamastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nachantarna Bahiryasya Na Purvam Na Pichaparam Purva Param Bahischantar Jagatoyo Jagatchayaha Tammatva Tmajam Avyaktam Mathyalingam Adokshajam Gopiko Lukale Damnam Babanda Prakritam Yatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, He is all-pervading. Because He is not under the influence of the element of time, for Him there is no difference between past, present and future. He exists in His own transcendental form, at all times, being absolute beyond relativity. He is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although He is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person who is beyond the perception of the senses had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. Here the description of Krishna's inconceivable achintya form and qualities is to some extent given, it's presented. And this is something, therefore, that those who are materialists can in no way understand. Because, as stated here, Krishna is just a dokshaja, beyond sense perception. Atashi Krishna nama adina bhaved graim indriya sevan mukhe hi jivadau svayameva spuratyadaha. It's beyond sense perception. And anyone who is trying to understand God with his very, very, very limited sensual perception is definitely doomed to fail, to completely misunderstand who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. As soon as we talk about Supreme Personality of Godhead, then definitely it is very clear that it therefore cannot be as what and who we are. It is something completely, not completely, absolutely completely, but to some extent completely different in terms of quantity, not in terms of quality. Of course, from material perception, conditioned material perception, then yes, then it's completely different. Then in that sense it is completely different. And therefore those who use the sense perception or pratyaksha, and those who are trying to be imposing their empirical understandings upon the qualities and form and just understanding of anything in relationship to God, they definitely then fail. They cannot do that. They cannot succeed. They cannot understand. So therefore here, this nature of the Supreme Absolute and the qualities of the Supreme Absolute are described, they're given, in order for us to understand also what is Krishna's nature. Because unless we have this knowledge, unless we receive the Shabda Praman, then by our Pratyaksha Praman we cannot understand who Krishna is. It's just impossible. And then most often and most likely we will misunderstand Krishna's position as just being some kind of ordinary material position or just some kind of ordinary material manifestation. And in one sense, this might be said to be correct and true, of course, understanding, taking in an account and understanding Krishna's transcendental nature, that Krishna acts, as it is stated here, as an ordinary child. So he may appear as an ordinary, but he is not ordinary. That's what has to be understood. He is not ordinary. In Srimad Bhagavatam there is description when Gopakumar, he comes to the spiritual world. He, after traveling throughout the whole universe and beyond the universe, and even going to the spiritual world, and then again he comes to Vrindavan, but he comes to Gokul Vrindavan. And then from Gokul Vrindavan, actually he doesn't even realize that he's already in Goloka Vrindavan. So it's very interesting that, and even in the very same body, just like it is described in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Pandavas also in the very same bodies, they went to the spiritual world. So he just enters immediately, he is in the spiritual world. So practically there is no difference between the spiritual manifestation on this material platform and spiritual manifestation in the spiritual world. There is practically no difference, except some minor things, like Krishna's age and there are no demons and so on. So, but there is no difference. So the Gopakumar, when he met Krishna in the spiritual world, and then Krishna embraced him, and there is a whole description given how they met. And then everybody else was shocked at how Krishna had fainted due to love, having that love towards his devotee. They were alarmed that, you know, what did that person, and who is this person? What did he do to Krishna, that Krishna is not coming to his senses and so on. So Gopakumar, he just didn't realize that he entered from Vrindavan, then he entered into the spiritual Golok Vrindavan. So from Gokul that he entered into the, from Gokul to Golok Vrindavan. So there is practically no difference. And this is something that it's so amazing about Krishna's pastimes compared to any other forms that Krishna manifests and those other pastimes. So this is why that lila, of course we know the four things, and one of those is the lila, that sweetness of the pastimes. It's so unique. It just appears so, we may say, almost mundane, so material, so just normal, regular to what we are accustomed to. But actually it's not. It's completely spiritual, it's completely transcendental. And in that sense also, when Krishna appears as just something or someone who is just mundane and just someone who we might be kind of used to, but actually he's not. He's completely spiritual, he's completely transcendental. But that makes those dealings and those relationships, it makes them very, very sweet, it makes them very unique. Because for the most people who are conditioned with material energy, to consider spiritual world and God, it must be something very, very different. It must be something completely extraordinary. Like we know, descriptions of Vaikuntha, they are extraordinary. There's nothing like this on this planet. There's nothing that we can perceive as such. And then, of course, Vishnu having 4 arms and sometimes more than 4 arms, or different manifestations, or in this way, or in this, something, it's just nothing to do with what we are accustomed to, what our experience in this world is. But Krishna's pastimes are not like this. They're pretty much as what we would expect in any kind of other relationship. Of course, it is spiritual, transcendental, it's much different from the quality point of view. But it just appears so mundane, so material kind of, but it's not. But again, that brings out that special flavor, that unique flavor, that unique sweetness. And that sweetness is something that actually makes Golok Vrindavan far more opulent than even Vaikuntha planets. Which, that sweetness just so much more transcends, even, we may use this word, it just goes so much more beyond any kind of awe and reverence and any kind of opulence manifested in the Vaikuntha planets. Of course, Vrindavan Dham, everything is consisting of Chintamani jewels, and that means anything being touched by that Chintamani just produces unlimited other types of opulences, and every tree is a desire tree. So there are so many various kinds of opulences. There is a very interesting description given in Chaitanya Charitamrita during Hira Panchami, when Srivas Thakur is very elated seeing that how the servants of Goddess Lakshmi are punishing the servants of Lord Jagannath. And then he's just so proud, saying, just see the opulence of Lakshmi, and why these servants of Jagannath and Jagannath, they're not valuing that opulence and so on. And then all the other devotees have been, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have been laughing. And then Swarup Damodar, he explained to, actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made Swarup Damodar explaining to Srivas Thakur that actually how Vrindavan is so much more opulent than actually any kind of opulence that Lakshmi even has in the Vaikuntha planets. So that is given. So therefore, when Krishna appears as an ordinary human being, of course, as Queen Kunti would, she prays and she says it's just like an actor on the stage, which it's not so easy to recognize. It's very difficult. So Krishna appears as a human being, but he also does act as a human being. He does act because he draws that flavor. And and devotees actually draw the flavor from Krishna. Because Krishna is Vishay and devotees are Ashray. They're drawing that flavor, and therefore Krishna appears in those kind of different forms and as all different types of rasas, so that the devotees who are in those particular relationships towards Krishna, that they can draw such kind of taste, such kind of mellow from Krishna himself. So this is how Krishna reciprocates. So in that sense, he manifests himself in so many different ways so that he can reciprocate to that love which is described here. Srila Prabhupada is describing at the end of the purport. It's just that love of the devotees that actually makes Krishna acting apparently in an ordinary way. But of course, it's not an ordinary way. It is a very transcendental way, and it's the most sweetest way. So Krishna appearing as such, this is something that it's therefore inconceivable for those who are used to that conception that God or anything spiritual has to be something really, really extraordinary. We already heard, and this has been described, that it's therefore very difficult to understand the Krishna's position, because how can Krishna act as an ordinary being? Therefore, he must be extraordinary in so many ways. This is why we know Lord Brahma, he becomes confused. Like in Bhagavad Gita, it has been stated, Vidur Devana Danava, neither sages, neither demigods, nobody can understand Krishna. And that's the very same reason why they can't understand Krishna, just because Krishna is acting in such kind of apparently mundane or material ways. But it's not. This is actually the topmost spiritual activity. When it is, of course, in relationship to those who exhibit pure love towards him, as I said here, mentioned in the Srila Prabhupada mentioning in the purport, those who have bhakti. So this is the most sweetest manifestation of Krishna's relationship, or the devotee's relationship towards Krishna. So it appears as such that Krishna is acting in some kind of just ordinary way, but it's not ordinary. So therefore, those who are empiricists, they're very shocked and very surprised, like we have the Lord Nrsimhadev there, when Lord Nrsimhadev appears in so many ways, like it has been described here, has no beginning, has no end, no exterior, no interior, no front and no rear. Like in Ishopanishad it said, he walks and he doesn't walk, and he runs fast and he doesn't, and he moves slow, and there's so many different kinds of contradictions. It seems like it's very contradicting. He has hands, he doesn't have hands. What is that? It's like that's why it said that Lord Jagannath appears also, just to has hands, he doesn't have hands. So many apparently contradictions are there, but they are not contradictions, because all the contradictions are resolved within the Absolute. And who is that Absolute? That's Krishna. He's the Absolute. Vedanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Yes, he's present everywhere, but he's also localized, and he also has a form. He also has a form. He is present everywhere, but again, he has a form, and this is why it's so difficult again to understand Krishna. How to understand Krishna? Why Krishna this? There's so many people, people, they may ask, why Krishna why he has peacock feather, why he loves cows, why he doesn't like, horses or something. Why this, why that? Just because Krishna is a person. Krishna is a person. He has his own personal nature. Why this, why that? And that this is actually the typical Mayavadi kind of polluted intelligence, trying to judge Krishna and trying to confine Krishna and trying to reduce Krishna and trying to present themselves as Krishna. Why Krishna this, why Krishna that, why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears, why he comes, how come he doesn't understand, why all these different kinds of questions like this. So how can he have a form if he's everywhere? Form is limiting. But form is not limiting, because of all subtle things, what is the most subtle? It's the sound. Like now we are speaking. The most subtle form of everything grows practically, it's the sound. And we know that Krishna is the most subtlest from all subtle things. Because that's what transcendence is, that's what spiritual is. So then even in the material form, or the grossest, subtlest, gross form, like as the sound, when we speak some words, those words have a form. And those words have a meaning. So even though it is subtle, it has the form. Because then Mayavadi's point that Krishna, although he is the transcendental and spiritual, the most subtle as such, then he doesn't have a form. Then that would be like saying that if I just make some noise like or something like this, that then that would convey some meaning. So, but that's something that definitely doesn't have a sense. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appears, he with the purpose to relish certain rasa, he also appears with a form, but that form is not limited. That form is not limited. Like here, there's the whole description is given here of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna, and how can she do that? Because Krishna's form is just inconceivable, which actually it is, but for sake of pleasing his devotees, Krishna allows himself to be bound by that love. So as we already heard so many times, Krishna is not bound by the ropes, he's not measurable as such by anything material. He is bound by the love of his devotees because he allows himself to be bound. Krishna is not like something that we can just measure, like we can measure anything materially, so to say, and therefore Krishna is limited as such. That is not the case. Yeah. So Krishna is all-pervading, but he is not, as it is stated here in the verse, he is not under the influence of the element of the time. He's not bound by the time. And this is what it's interesting. That's why, and how the time is conspicuous in the spiritual world. Therefore, in general, we point out, we said, like, there is no time. But there is a time, there are things happening in some time frames, but actually that time is subservient to Krishna. That's the whole point. In the material world, the time is the master, but in the spiritual world, Krishna is the controller. Krishna arranges the time, and time serves Krishna. It's a big difference. Like, for example, now, within some minutes, there is a time that separates us from breakfast. So we have to wait, whether it's ready or not, but still in some way. So, and there is some space. You can't just you have to go and you have to walk. So the frame of the time and the space, it separates us. But that's not the case in the spiritual world. As soon as one just thinks of whatever, prasadam and this and that, there's no time. It's just immediately. It's just there. There's a prasadam and there's no space. You don't have to walk and go here and there, anywhere, here or there or wherever. You don't have to do that. It's just immediately there. So this is something that it's limiting us. in the material world. But in the spiritual world, there is no limit. And then that point of relativity that we experience here in the material world, it's not present there in the spiritual world, because spiritual world is absolute. There's no conception of relativity. Because whenever we experience some motion within some frame of space, that this is what the time is. So that motion, it's what it's relative. But that's not there in such concept, it's not there in the spiritual world. Like the relativity, of course, anyway, it's like the classic example of the platform and the train, which one is moving, you know? And at what time had passed. Maybe somebody's looking at his watch, somebody's just not considering that at all, you know, how much time had passed. It's again, it's a relative. For someone, you know, who might be in anxiety, it might take a long time, and for somebody who's maybe, you know, it may take ages, and it just won't matter so much. So it's just relative. Everything is so much relative. So Krishna is not bound by that relativity, because he is absolute. And therefore he's not subservient to time. He's beyond the time, as it has been stated here. So for him, therefore, there is no difference between past, present, and future. Because actually in the spiritual world, everything is present. Everything is happening in the moment. In the material world, when we say present right now, that present immediately becomes past. So he exists in his own transcendental form at all times. So he is absolute beyond relativity. So therefore his form is always as he is. That's why Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He's always in Vrindavan. Yeah. And it's always absolute. It's unchangeable. Like there was one very nice, interesting pastime happened, and then the devotees were performing a drama on the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the local brahmanas, they go to Kazi and they're complaining that this Nimai, I was in Atlanta and Srila Prabhupada was present, and devotees were on the stage and they were enacting how brahmanas were complaining and saying that this Nimai Pandit, he was such a nice boy, but now just see, he's spoiling the whole Hindu religion. He's, you know, going outside and inspiring people to chant the holy names, and these names are so holy, and by chanting those holy names, he's diminishing the potency of the holy name. And then Prabhupada was holding the mic, and then he started laughing. And then that was heard, and all the devotees just froze. What to do now? Because Prabhupada was laughing when he heard that the Brahmana said that distribution of the holy name is diminishing the potency of the holy name. And then Srila Prabhupada made a comment, he stopped laughing, and he said that actually now the holy name has become even more powerful. So actually the whole point of spiritual conception is that the holy name, when it's utilized more and more and more, it increases in its potency more and more and more and more. It doesn't become minimized. It doesn't become diminished. It increases more and more and more. So in spiritual conception is that everything is just, it can't be restricted, it can't be confined, it can't be framed. It just keeps on ever increasing. And all the pastimes and all the relationship that Krishna has, and all of this is just keeps on increasing. And how can one who is bound by the mundane sense perception or that contaminated by empiric ideas, you know, how can he understand Krishna? How can anyone as such understand the pastimes of Krishna? It's very difficult. And even within the frame of beyond, let's say, those who are having atheistic mentality, even those who are apparently, well, okay, to some extent spiritual or trying to practice spiritual life, then we have like the different conceptions of dualism and monism. Yeah. Because monistic conception is that actually everything we perceive, even if we think there is some variety of shape, maybe if we see some variety of color, anything like this is actually illusion. It is just that we are thinking it's like this. It's not, doesn't really exist. It's just, this is not yellow or orange or white or, I don't, it's just, we are thinking like this. It's all just illusion. And we are not necessarily sitting on the floor. Maybe we are sitting on the horse or something, and it's just, we're just thinking like this. You're just thinking you're sitting on the marble or whatever, granite also mixed, but, or, it's just you're thinking. It's all illusion, you know. And if you see an elephant, maybe trunk or ear, there's no difference. It's all just one. So it's just it's just absurd. That's kind of philosophy. It's just absurd, actually. It just. But then you have the dualists, and this is even more, of course, here in India, some dualists are at least understanding the connection between material energy and Krishna being the source of that material energy, as here it has been, there is description in the verse given of the cause and effect. But in the West, the dualism, it is just extreme dualism. It's that there is a God and that there is material world. And there's nothing that they're just always separated. There is a creator, there is a creation, there is nothing that connects them. And therefore, portraying God in any kind of form, material form, it's actually a blasphemy. It's actually idol worship. It's actually offensive. And they go to such extremes, and like, for example, in Islam, Wahhabis, you know, they're known to just even to destroy the shrine of Muhammad, because nobody except any divinity can be worshipped in such a way or presented anything in any particular way or nothing as such. Anyway, there's so many, like in the West also Protestantism and so forth, and because I don't get into it. So those kind of, where they were just in the churches destroying any kind of form or image or shape or whatever, just completely. So why? Because God cannot be manifested in any kind of form. But that doesn't make sense. Because again, that they have a conception of resurrection, where in material body will be assembled from material elements together, and then within that body one will associate with God. How does that make it? It's just one-way traffic. How does that make sense? It's just incoherent. It's not mature. It's just not systematic. It doesn't make sense, actually. And then how come the material world also, which is like here there's discussion of cause and effect, material world which is a manifestation of God or creation of God, be completely separated from God as such, having absolutely no connection whatsoever? How does that make sense? Like we can pick up anything, like this chandelier or anything, we say, oh, it has absolutely nothing to do with God, but there is a concept, okay, it's not that we degrade God down to the level of matter, but why not that, why couldn't we elevate, you know, the material energy, you know, in connection with God? So it's not that we're degrading or making things offensive by degrading God to the level of matter. No, but why not elevating that matter, showing and presenting how actually that matter is in connection to God? And this is how the whole discussion here, like here it is said, he exists. He's free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he's the cause and effect of everything. So he's the effect of everything. And every effect has some cause within itself. Effect is not free from the cause. Like if somebody is diseased, for example, then of course that disease, it's present in its symptoms, it's manifested in a certain way, so one can understand what is the cause, you know, which is being manifested through the effect. Or so many other examples, like those who are in car insurance or something, by seeing skid marks on the road or something, they can understand what was the cause of certain accident or something, whatever has happened, whatever. So there is pretty much the effect that it's present within, I mean, the cause that it's present within the effect. And in one verse, Dhruva Maharaj, in fourth canto, there is the description. It says that how God is present within His creation. And it's just interesting. It said it has been pointed out that it's just like the integrated force within the magnet attracts the iron. So in the similar way, by just creating certain, just by particular impetus, by creating the impetus, the God immediately creates so many causes and effects, just by certain impetus. And then Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, it gives the example of the potter and the wheel, and the potter uses the clay, and he can make various effects, various shapes, but ultimately who is the cause and what is the cause is the potter and the force that he is using upon the wheel. So Krishna is similarly ultimately cause of all the material manifestation, of all this material creation. He is the ultimately cause behind everything that we can actually perceive, or even what we can't perceive. So this only, that distinction between monism, that distinction between dualism, that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. He came to resolve this by his philosophy of Chintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and simultaneous difference. And that again only, like in this verse, just to summarize, kind of just to make it short because time is running. So that's the whole point, how we can understand this Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva by practicing bhakti, by loving devotional service. Otherwise it's impossible. And this is how we can understand Krishna's position, and Krishna as being all-pervading and then being simultaneously present in one place and being able to be bound by this love that has been exhibited by the Mother Yashoda. Okay, so we'll stop here. Any comments or questions? Yeah, I was supposed to in 8:30 then. Yeah, one question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much. One question, that when we see things in connection with Krishna, we save ourselves from degrading mind.
We what?
Save ourselves, safeguard our consciousness, our mind. Means our consciousness will be saved if you are seeing.
Saved.
Yes,
Okay.
if you are seeing the things in connection with Krishna.
Okay.
But normally, whole day, this is not in practice also. Then how to save our consciousness?
How to save our consciousness.
Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita purport that when we see things in relation with Krishna,
Okay.
we safeguard our consciousness, ourselves.
We save our consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, consciousness. Yeah, okay. So how to do that all the time? Yeah. Well, that's what practically we are trying to achieve. Every one of us is trying to achieve every moment, or at least sometimes during the day. Yeah, so it depends. So that's why we keep on inspiring each other, reminding ourselves, like you asked this question, so now we're just also trying to see everything in connection to Krishna. Seeing how, at least if nothing else, his energies are present everywhere. And then actually he is present everywhere. So by more practice, by more inspiration from others as such, more being in the fire of devotional service, and that will remind us of Krishna being present everywhere. So just again, like here in the purport, Prabhupada points out, more devotional service, just by more engagement. And then in this way, hopefully our consciousness will become purified, so that we can think of Krishna and see Krishna everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop then, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.